This program contains true stories of rescues. All of the 911 calls you will hear are real. Whenever possible, the actual people involved have helped us reconstruct the events as they happened.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Chesterfield Emergency Service.
They're doing good hands here.
In a world of uncertainty and danger, there are times when we all take calculated risks, but sometimes we overestimate our own abilities. I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories of the power of the human spirit on Rescue 911. We begin in Miami, Florida, where Grant Kemmerer was outside on the patio of his apartment, tending to his favorite pets.
Grant's always loved animals. He didn't care what they were.
He wanted to have snakes. We allowed him to have snakes at the house, which were non-poisonous snakes. After he had his own place, he told me that he was going to get some semi-poisonous snakes. And I knew that once we had progressed to a semi-poisonous snake, that the next thing was going to be a poisonous snake.
And I told him whenever he got the snakes, I said, you know, one of these days they're going to call me at work and they're going to tell me you've been bitten. And Grant's pat answer to that was, no, Mom, don't worry. Trust me, it will never happen.
Ignoring his parents' warnings, Grant bought a rare albino Asian cobra, one of the most deadly animals in the world.
When Grant showed me the Cobra, I was fascinated by it. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's also absolutely lethal. Grant said that the snake was docile, but to me the snake was very hostile. Anytime I was ever around the snake would hood, and the snake would strike the front of the cage, and it would continue to strike the front of the cage until its nose was bloody. I thought, I'm going to lose my son because of this stupid snake.
Shortly before midnight on November 20th, 1989, Grant went to change the cobra's water. After 4 years, he was confident he could handle the snake safely. Larry Wygand had only been Grant's roommate for a month.
When he pulled out his albino snake, I noticed that it was getting close to him, but I didn't worry because I knew that he's handled it before.
Carefully keeping the snake's head away from his body, down near his thick leather boots, Grant reached for the snake's empty water bowl.
I heard him shout from the patio, and when I looked out, he was putting the albino snake back into the cage.
I just been bit.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Grant was shocked. He started to react, I think, maybe feel a little nauseous. So then he said, Larry, you know, just get me to the hospital, let's go.
Without treatment, the cobra's venom could kill Grant within a few hours.
When Grant started to tell me that his reaction might be a cardiac arrest, that's when I really started to worry. I was relieved to see a state trooper ahead of us. Driver motioned me to roll my window down, so I motioned him to pull off to the shoulder of the road. When I got out of the car, the driver came out kind of excited, waving his arms and screaming something to the fact that his buddy or the passenger was bitten by a cobra. I saw the victim slumped over and the blood running down his leg, and that I figured the time was of essence.
Florida Highway Patrol Officer Jim Card headed for the nearest hospital.
Male 1012, reference to Cobra bite.
I then notified the station that I had a snake bite victim and that he'd been bit by a cobra, and that they needed to tell the hospital, Baptist ER, that I had somebody coming in so they could prepare for him.
ETA's 3 to 5 minutes.
I reached speeds right in the area of 100, 110 miles an hour. It allowed me to get to the Baptist in right around the area of 3 minutes. I know that you get bit by a cobra, you don't have a whole lot of time to deal with. He was still conscious at the time, but as I was carrying him in, he said that he was getting a little lightheaded.
Get him up. You got a snake bite.
Okay, I'll get that to Brandon. What kind of snake was it?
Cobra.
We'll see if we have the answer.
Okay, let's get the leads on him.
He told us the kind of snake that he was bitten by, and we realized that we had a problem. This particular antivenom for an Asian cobra isn't kept available in the hospital because it's used so rarely.
Okay, get the innovation tray ready.
Emergency room doctor Larry Branham had never treated a cobra bite before.
I was changing the water bowl in its cage. I keep him.
When did it happen?
About 20 minutes ago.
The fact that he was so sick so soon after being bitten meant to me that he had had a rather severe bite. And this really caused a lot of concern because this particular type of snake has a neurotoxin basically that can paralyze a person. He could stop breathing, his heart could stop, and I knew that right at the particular time there was not a lot we could do for him.
130 over 8.
Is there any place else that you possibly could think of that may have this antivenom?
The nursing staff and people at the desk began to make phone calls to try and obtain some type of antivenom that we could use, and no one actually could agree on the type of antivenom that we needed.
Grant, can you hear us?
Yeah. I feel nauseous.
You recognize your mother?
Yeah.
He was seeing double. He was shaking a little bit. He was slowly losing consciousness. He looked like he was dying. There was just a lot of things going through my head. Most of it was just flashbacks of him when he was little and, you know, how do we get him to this age and then all of a sudden this happens to him.
Grant asked them to contact his friend, snake expert Joe Wasilewski. Joe brought some anti-venom he thought would work to the hospital.
Poor Grant must have been scared half to death just by the vibrations of everyone coming on around him.
Hey, Grant, I'm here.
So I went in there as calm as I can be, and I just wanted to give him some confidence, and Grant seemed relieved.
I've got the serum, everything will be fine now. My eyes are acting real funny. What that happens?
It could take as little as 1 drop of cobra venom to kill a person.
I've been through all that you're talking about.
To see one of your friends in such a condition is scary.
Okay, I'm gonna go talk to the doctor.
The antivenom that he brought in was a South African cobra antivenom. The snake that had bitten Grant was an Asian cobra. If you used the wrong type of antivenom and you then wanted to re-inject him with a different type of antivenom, he may be sensitive to that and may have a full-blown allergic reaction.
It'll work for that cobra, I know that.
The snake he has is an Asian cobra.
With only one chance to save Grant's life with antivenom, Dr. Branham was reluctant to use the wrong kind.
I don't know, but can you go see if you can get the information?
No problem.
Okay. I didn't know who he was, didn't know anything about him, so I really didn't know how reputable his information might be.
The trip to get the book kind of bothered me because I knew it would take an hour under normal circumstances. And from what I saw, his symptoms were going downhill fast.
Stay awake.
He was having trouble with his breathing, he was having trouble with his speech, having trouble with seeing even. Once these types of symptoms begin, the neurotoxin can progress very rapidly, leading to anything from coma to death.
It had been less than 2 hours since Grant was bitten.
I was hoping for the best and expecting the worst. I was praying to God that he would pull Grant through, that he would give him a second chance, that he wouldn't take my only son away from me.
get another BP on him.
Around 2 a.m., Joe returned with the snake book.
When I showed the book to the doctor, it does say additional venoms neutralized, and it said Asian cobra, but there was an asterisk, and I never noticed the asterisk before, but the doctor sure did, and it actually said it may or may not neutralize this venom, and if it does, it may be slight. So the doctor still wasn't convinced that this was the proper serum.
Joe brought in this antivenom, which I'm not sure is what we need.
We really didn't have anything else effective that we could use, but I wanted it to be a decision that they were involved in, that they understood the risk, that they knew what we were doing, and I wanted their help as well. And
when you come right down to it, we really didn't have a choice. We had to try something. We had to do something. And Grant kept telling me, Joe knows what he's doing. So I had talked to his father, and his father went out and he went ahead and signed the papers, and they started giving them the serum.
Nearly 3 hours had passed. Time was running out.
It was frightening to say yes. Use this antivenom that may or may not work.
I didn't know Joe. I didn't know if the anti-serum was going to work. And, of course, the next thought is, what if I give him this and it kills him?
Come on, open your eyes.
You got to stay with me when I'm putting this in you.
the antivenom didn't seem to take effect. Grant was still declining. His pulse was irregular. His fingernails were turning blue, which I was real concerned with. Come on, talk to me. Talk to me. Come on.
Come on, Grant. Come on.
As long as you can feel it. In a real bad cobra bite, you become euphoric, lethargic. You lay back. You don't care what's going to happen to you. You don't care if you live or die.
I think we were into approximately the 5th or 6th vial before you could see things started to reverse themselves.
By the time he had finished the 100 cc's of anti-venom, he was totally awake. He was still having some blurred vision, but his vital signs and things were okay.
The happiest moment of the entire evening was when Grant asked for food. When he said those particular words, "I'm hungry," I thought, we got this. This is made. This is it. This is, you know, this is going to be history.
And I'm sure you'll be glad to get out of here.
It was really a festive time for all, because everybody knew Grant was going to make it.
I think we'll all be glad to get out of here.
Really?
Okay. No more Cobras.
Remember that 6 months from now.
Once I made it through all those hurdles, it was so jubilated, like no one would really be able to understand that, with maybe the exception of Joe, you know, someone that had been through a cobra bite. He knew that anguish that was going through me when I was laying there motionless on the table. He knew when I came out of that what I had gone through, and just the tremendous relief and feeling like, wow, the sun is now shining, you know, like you had just come up from the bottom of the seafloor after, you know, like 100 years, and now you're seeing the sunlight for the first time. It was like that.
Every animal has a little niche in the world. Now let's say we...
Joe and I have become very close, of course, through this. We work together now doing shows and lectures. I feel good every time I teach a youngster how important animals are to us.
Grant still collects snakes, but none that are poisonous. He knows he can't count on being that lucky twice, and he wouldn't want to risk hurting the people who care about him.
It's just something that not everybody gets to see. It's, you know, how genuine friends and family's love is for you, and you really can't understand that until you do come that close.
When it's all over, you look at the things that you've done, like you growl him for not brushing his teeth or not picking up his clothes, and you think, geez, that was minor, you know. I'm just thankful he's alive. Just very thankful he's alive.
Everybody look up over here. Smile, everybody.
Next.
On road.
And those of us on top didn't really have a clear idea of what had completely happened, but we knew that there was serious trouble.
Curiosity has always driven man to explore, despite the fact that there might be risks involved. On October 28, 1990, in a remote area of Alabama, 5 young men set out for an afternoon adventure with no idea that it might lead to tragedy.
Cave rescue differs from many types of rescue in the sense that it's not an easy load and go situation. You can't simply back the ambulance up and load your patient in. Not too long ago, we did a cave rescue, and it ultimately took 54 of us 18 hours to get this injured person out of the cave.
Tom Harris and his friend Paul Ahe had traveled from Florida to spend a weekend with local caving enthusiasts. Among them was Pat Lancaster.
Since Tom and Paul were visiting with us from Tallahassee, we wanted to do a vertical caving trip that went to a pit that they'd not done before. So we decided that we would take Paul and Tom up to Moses' Tomb.
Paul had only been caving for 2 years.
What we were planning to do is what's called bouncing the pit, and that's where you just rappel down to the bottom and then just climb back up.
What do you think? You caving today?
Pat and Art Goller had rappelled the more than 200 feet down to the bottom of Moses' Tomb before.
Moses' Tomb has the biggest flowstone formation I've ever seen in it. It's about 150 feet tall. It's gorgeous. There's all kinds of formations on the climb up.
You ready to go in, dude?
No, go ahead. Tom was going to go down first, but he had a little bit of trouble with his light. So Howard went down first.
It was only the third time Howard Cobb had rappelled down into any cave.
Unless you've got a car headlight on your helmet, you can't see the bottom. So the whole time you're cruising. I was doing pretty good speed down the road.
After Howard was off rope, Tom went ahead and then began to rig onto the rope.
On rope! And then I heard Tom holler on rope.
We heard someone screaming up from the bottom of the pit.
Yes!
After a few moments, we ascertained that it was Howard and that he was calling for help. At that time, those of us on top didn't really have a clear idea of what had completely happened, but we knew that there was serious trouble.
He fell about 100 feet! Do I need to come down?
Art was the person who already had his harness on and was ready to descend next.
Hey, dude, he's on top of the rope! Howard! We're going for help. Talk to me, Tom. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. He was cold, and he was gasping, he was sputtering, like he was going into some type of seizure. Talk to me, buddy. Talk to me, buddy. All right, Art, rope's free! Come on! On rope! You're just trying to, for your heart not to bust out of your chest, you know, that this is real and it's happening, and oh my God.
By the time Art got to the bottom of the cave, Tom had begun to regain consciousness.
And I don't know what happened. He got over the lip and he just started cruising. Very obvious that his left leg was fractured badly just because the weight was bent back. And I tore the bottom of my shirt off to stop the bleeding there.
The nearest telephone was at a truck stop 15 minutes away.
YW899, clear.
At 11:40 a.m., the call for help came into the DeKalb County Sheriff's Department.
Hello. My friend's been in an accident.
The local rescue squad from Ida was immediately dispatched to the scene. Volunteer member Ricky Little also responded from his home.
I immediately went back to dispatch and notified them that I was en route for them to notify Rainsville Rescue Squad because they had more appropriate repellent type gear that we would need involved with cave rescue.
It's getting cold. It didn't look good. He's really complaining of pain and can't feel his legs, and you're worried. I wasn't sure whether or not he was going to make it or not. He was in pretty rough shape.
The first EMTs arrived at the scene within 50 minutes. Without the rappelling gear needed to get them 230 feet down into the cave and Tom back up, they were helpless.
I dived base contacted Rainsville. They're en route with repellers.
Minutes later, the Rainsville Rescue Squad arrived with some ropes and rappelling equipment.
Okay, we're going to set up a LZ here in case we need to do a scene flat.
We were by no means experts in the rope rescue field, and of course we didn't have any idea of how extensive the man was injured.
It had been more than 2 hours since the accident. Tom's condition was continuing to deteriorate. At the top of the cave, paramedic Anthony Clifton assessed the scene.
We got a man from the tree fell about 120 feet.
You have no immediate access to a victim, particularly in a vertical cave, and realized almost immediately that it was, in fact, more than we could handle because of the depth of the cave.
Anthony, being experienced in rappelling, volunteered to descend and provide the necessary emergency response for the victim.
Pretty much everything we're going to need, I think.
The Chattanooga-Hamilton County Cave Rescue Team was called in, but they were based 50 miles away in Tennessee.
Slow! We got it! The rope free! You're ready, Anthony. As soon as they get here...
I knew that there was a person down there who needed help, and I knew that I had enough experience to get to that patient. But we had a close friend who had died attempting a similar rescue some weeks earlier.
Anthony then handed me his personal contents and said, "Tell Barbara," that's his wife, "I love her." And then he descended to the bottom of the tomb.
On rope!
When we continued,
I was down there myself, had a person who could very likely die on me, and that was a scary feeling.
Tom Harris was rappelling into a cave more than 200 feet deep when he lost control and fell to the rock floor below. He was in critical condition and urgently needed emergency medical care. But the rescuers didn't have the specialized equipment, the difficult task of getting him out safely. While rescue workers waited outside the narrow opening at the top of the cave, paramedic Anthony Clifton attempted the dangerous descent to reach Tom.
My name's Anthony. I'm a paramedic.
He was not talking. He had the general appearance of being in shock. There was a considerable amount of blood on the rocks. He was pale, cool, sweaty, had a rapid pulse. We noticed that the leg that was fractured, he was not complaining of pain there, which caused us to believe that his back was seriously injured.
Come on in here. We got to get all this gear put in here. This black bag, that blue bag.
Jerry Smith, an expert in rope rescue, happened to be teaching a class not far from the cave. When the group heard about the situation, they offered their equipment and assistance.
The main line is going to be over here. Belay line will be over here.
Tom, take a deep breath in.
Most of the time when you do a rescue, you have access. You can simply holler at somebody and say, hand me this or hand me that. But in this respect, I was down there myself, had a person who could very likely die on me, and that was a scary feeling.
Directionals ready to go.
Jerry's class rigged the mechanical advantage system needed to haul up the stretcher in less than 30 minutes.
We had that rigged up very fast. The guys had just taken the class, and we had just done it less than an hour earlier, so they knew exactly what needed to be put together. They put the anchors in, they put the hardware on, and that thing was ready to go very quickly.
Hey, man? Yeah. Watch out for me coming. All right. Out top of patient. All right.
When Paul came down, he brought me another radio, and we relayed the information from us about the patient's condition to the top of the cave, and it was relayed on to the hospital.
Down rope on the belay line. I think you got more of the slack than the main line.
I got plenty of slack.
Okay.
Where's the hurt on your back? Where my hand is? Yes. Hold still. It's real easy. Let's ease him on over,
We
gentlemen.
put him onto a long backboard to stabilize his spine.
Easy, guys. Keep his neck straight.
We started an IV and completed another assessment.
Go ahead and get that over here.
3 hours after the accident, the cave rescue team, including EMT Dennis Curry, arrived to help lift Tom out of Moses' tomb.
He's been coordinating everything. Okay, I'm gonna need
EMT Curry had rappelled into this cave before.
rope. He is stable. Blood pressure at this time is...
The caves in many areas of the United States tend to be very cold. This cold that they're constantly in is simply going to aggravate the situation. It's a race, truly a race against time.
1, 2, 3, up.
Okay.
At that time, we began to package him into the basket for the lift.
The captain of the cave team, Buddy Lane, decided that he wanted me to go ahead and rappel down to the bottom of Moses' tomb where the patient was to assist in packaging and then later the hoist of the victim towards the entrance.
Oh, it's tight. I'll be right down with you guys here in a second to help you best I can. 10-4. Update on patient just as soon as we can get it. How can I help you?
He was very lucid when I got to him and we were able to converse with him clearly. He indicated that he was experiencing some numbness from approximately the waist down. We were very concerned that he may have injured his spine.
We've got several heat packs here. I'm going to activate these. Try to be careful with putting them right against the skin.
It would take nearly an hour to raise Tom to the surface.
Tom, you look pretty cold, so this is going to help you a lot.
We had to make sure that his condition was stabilized to the point that he would be okay from the time he left bottom till the time he reached medical assistance on top.
I want you to go ahead and have him come up to me. Okay, Tom, you're going to feel a little movement now. Tell us if it hurt you.
Nice and easy.
And as the litter began to be raised, I climbed single rope technique on a separate rope right next to him.
Okay, Tom, we're on our way out. Looking good.
Because of the seriousness of Tom's injuries, the basket had to be raised very carefully, an inch at a time, keeping it as level as possible.
Buddy is coming in.
Buddy Lane climbed in to assist in getting the stretcher out at the top.
10-4, Dennis. I hear you. Okay, he's fixing to descend down to the first ledge. We're getting a little spin, buddy. We should be able to get it out here to the top.
Dennis was real concerned about the speed of the stretcher coming up. He wanted to make sure that the stretcher was moving at a nice, smooth, even pace. With the mechanical advantage system that we use, we're able to do that real easy. We could move him fractions of an inch at a time.
And then we need to swing underneath our other rope right there. Okay? Hang on. Okay, Tom. Well, I've almost got you out of here, guy. Okay, can you hold on to him right from the hall? Stop! Stop!
Situation, I've got to get in between the wall and the litter here.
It's tough. I'm going to have to go vertical near the top.
That's good. Just 1 inch increments.
Okay.
It's getting really tight in here.
All right, let us know what you need.
I'm going to put the slide in. Okay, we're just trying to level you off here, Tom.
When we got to the entrance, the pit, about 2 by 2 feet, I had to get underneath the litter, and it was everything that we could do with us working inside and the men on the team outside the hole pulling, and us trying to slowly manipulate the litter through that very tight opening.
Okay, haul, haul, slow. Okay, now you're going to have to start pulling on that headline.
Okay.
Slow, stop. Stop.
I mean, if he didn't fit, he had to go back to the bottom. And then everybody on the bottom had to be cleared out of the way, and we had to take whatever measures were necessary to enlarge that entrance.
Stop. Watch this rope here. Okay, watch his head. Watch it. Just that guy. Head rolling clear.
They were able to go ahead and lift the litter vertically through the hole. If Mr. Harris had been about 1 inch bigger man through the chest, we probably would have had to cut rock to get him out this entrance.
Y'all go ahead and carry him on over.
Pretty soon we saw his good old fuzzy bearded face and his helmet and all coming out. It made the whole thing a lot better at that point. It was pretty hard up till then.
Slow it down, slow it down.
And while we were carrying Tom down, he looked up at me at one point and I said, "How you doing?" He gave me a thumbs up.
All the way down the mountain, all right?
6.5 hours after his fall, Tom Harris arrived at Erlanger Medical Center, where x-rays revealed that a crushed vertebrae in his spine was partially paralyzing him from the waist down.
As I was lying there on the bottom waiting for the rescue, I remember after I felt that I knew that my legs weren't working, didn't have any feeling in them, I remember thinking to myself that I was going to survive. I made that decision that I was going to survive this, and it wasn't too big a problem to manage. Oh, got you.
Tom was hospitalized for 2.5 weeks. Doctors are unsure if he'll ever walk again, but as soon as he returned home, he began physical therapy sessions to try and regain use of his legs. His wife, Ursula, and his friends have been very supportive.
People he never even knew before were just calling him up and, asking him, "How's it going? How are you feeling? What can I do for you?" It was amazing how close everyone was.
For someone who had, just gone through what he had gone through, he was in quite good spirits, to say the least, and had a very good outlook for possibilities of recovering in the future.
The people involved with the rescue were just excellent. They got me out alive. They got me out quickly. I'm not happy about having a spinal cord injury and not being able to walk, but I feel real fortunate that my injuries were not more serious.
On December 2nd, 1990, 6 weeks after the accident, Tom took his first steps.
I can't say enough about how much support and care I've gotten from my wife. Through all this, she's been really my best asset of all. And I know a lot of people that have to go through this kind of experience without someone there. She's been wonderful.
What I have learned is to look at this as an opportunity to grow, and it's certainly been a challenge. The thing that strikes me most is just his zest for life, challenging himself and testing limits, and seems to just thrive on those challenges. That same enjoyment and challenge is also what's pulling him through the accident.
In the 4.5 months that have passed, Tom has learned to walk with the aid of crutches and to cope with the uncertainty of when, if ever, he will be free of his disability.
It's frustrating. Things are getting easier, though. The hardest part of it is just being patient and not knowing how much recovery I'll have.
I don't see it going in.
People interact with you differently when you're in a wheelchair. I didn't realize some of my own prejudices against wheelchair-bound people until I was in one. It's that part of it's kind of hard to deal with. It's real important to remember that a person in a wheelchair is a person. There's no need for people to pity my situation because I'm doing real well. I feel like nothing important has changed. I still have the same goals and the same interests. I'm still the same person.
Next.
I was waiting for my mom to pick me up, and she came across the street and picked me up by the playground.
There's no feeling more helpless than being unable to come to the aid of a loved one in need, as Heidi Nunez discovered on December 18, 1985, near her home in Redlands, California.
I was on my way to pick up my daughter from school. She was in kindergarten at the time.
Heidi was 5 months pregnant with her third child.
I had my son, Matthew, in the back seat in his car seat, and we headed off towards the school. I pulled up alongside the curb, and I left the car running because the starter on the car was bad. And sometimes if you shut the car off, it wouldn't always start up again. And I thought that my son would be okay because he was in his car seat.
I was waiting for my mom to pick me up, and she came across the street and picked me up by the playground.
Are you ready to go? I grabbed her hand and we turned around, and my car was going down the street with my son in the front seat. My first reaction was just to go after it, to see if I could catch it, but it just seemed like the faster I ran, the faster the car was going. And I thought, oh, God, if there's a God, make my legs run faster. And I couldn't run any faster, and my son was crying for me. The further away the car got, the faster it was going, and it started heading towards houses. I thought, dear God, I know he's gonna die because it was going so fast and it was so out of control.
Mailman Alex Verdeo had just begun his daily route.
When I heard this crashing noise, I looked out on the street and I seen this car popping out of this neighbor's yard, and I noticed that there was no one driving in it, and I could hear a kid screaming in the car. The boy was standing on the front seat. So there was that thought that if I'm not able to stop this car is going to hit whatever it's going to hit, be in a car, be in a house. This little kid's going to fly through that windshield. And something in my mind told me that I was the only one there that could do something.
The car was quickly approaching a busy intersection, less than 100 feet ahead. When Alex finally managed to bring the car to a stop, it was just 20 feet short of the intersection. But both he and Matthew were unharmed.
The mother came down. She was crying. I gave her to the boy.
I held my son, and it felt so good because for a split second there, I thought I'd never be able to hold my baby again.
Matthew's then 5-year-old sister, Andrea, had been watching the whole time.
I ran up to my mom and I was crying because I was so glad that Matt was okay.
When it was over, I picked up my mail, picked up my satchel, and started going back to work again. And I started thinking of what I just did, and I started getting scared. I started shivering and started shaking because it happened so quick that I didn't have time to be scared during this whole time, okay? So I got scared after it happened.
5 years have passed. For Heidi and Gennaro Nunez and their children, that day is still a vivid memory.
I learned that there are people who aren't afraid to risk their own life to save another.
What do you have for dinner? Let me guess, McDonald's.
And I've learned that you never, under no circumstances, ever leave your children unsupervised in a car.
The color of your nose now. I still see it happening in my head. And I see Alex running across the street, and he saved my brother's life. And I'm so proud of that. I appreciate that a lot, because if he never did that, my brother wouldn't be here. He just wouldn't be here.
I love kids. I've always loved kids. I got 2 new kids of my own. And Matthew, I like Matthew. He's a real nice kid. He's a grown boy. He's smart. He's going on 7 years old. You know, he's got his whole life ahead of him. Okay, we'll chase them, knowing we don't have wings.
Alex came and grabbed onto the handle, and he stopped the car, and he put the car in the park, and he took me to my mom. He's a hero because he saved my life.
When I see Alex and Matthew together, there is a bond between them. I feel it, Matthew feels it, and I hope Alex feels it.
Next. Engine 5, a stabbing. Police are responding.
If we are injured or killed before we can get to the patient, we've done them more harm than good.
Trauma centers specializing in treating critically ill or injured people are expensive to build and maintain. Until 1989, the state of Minnesota did not even have a level 1 trauma unit. This story is not a recreation. It's one night, May 14, 1990, at the Hennepin County Medical Center in Minneapolis.
You have to care about a human being to put yourself in blood from head to toe, vomitus, whatever else might be coming out of this person, all over your nice clean uniform that you just put on an hour ago, and brush it off as, well, just another part of the job. I'll go clean up, put on a clean uniform, and we'll go back at it again. Most people wouldn't do that.
Minneapolis 911. Somebody's hurt outside our house.
What happened, do you know?
I don't know.
What's your address there?
15th Avenue South.
Do you know how they're hurt?
I think somebody's stabbed. Please bring an ambulance. He's falling over. Please.
All right, we'll get him out there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Engine 5, a stabbing. Police are responding. 15th Avenue South. Possible suspect outside.
Engine 5 on 15.
9:37 p.m. Paramedic Jeff Frederick is dispatched to the scene.
Copy 330, the common code 3.
Knowing that this was a violent act, we try not to go into the scene without police escorting us in.
Over there?
If we are injured or killed before we can get to the patient, we've done them more harm than good.
Yeah. Kelly's the only other one here. No, I only brought one set. Here, should be some in here.
Stay back, okay? Stay back. He took an airway.
Okay.
He took an airway and a
405 and 11.
He's lifted his head, too.
Tell the crew to bring mass trousers and backboard.
We could find no blood pressure at all.
Let's start positive pressure. Anybody with them when this happened?
They just said they found him out here. Slide them out, guys. What's your name?
Peripheral pulse. I can barely feel it riding.
Oxygen. Keep your hands in. Vibes down.
Our concern with the blood pressure so low that we couldn't measure it was that his heart would stop, that he would go into cardiac and respiratory arrest. We'd then have a real mess on our hands.
Stay still, buddy. Take a deep breath, Elsa. Again. Okay, again. Deep breath. Take a deep breath. Hold
Lay down.
Lay down.
Lay down. You gotta stay laying down. You've been stabbed in the chest. You understand that?
You know IV drug user? Oh, these lots of tracks.
Yeah, there's tracks everywhere. Call them and tell them we doubt we're going to have IV access, a lot of track marks. They're going to need a cut down as soon as we get there.
just a bare drip.
The patient arrives at Hennepin County Medical Center within 10 minutes.
No IV access. He's got track marks everywhere. We couldn't get an IV on either side. We didn't try for his neck yet. Looks like he's got a fairly decent external jugular on the right, but he's stabbed in the left supraclavicular area. We haven't seen him move his feet recently.
Oh, my leg, we're getting full.
Hold your still, sir. Blood pressure, any pulse, you can eat.
Emergency medicine surgeon John Kaminsky examines the stab wound in the man's neck.
They make me very nervous. They can be very deceiving. The patient looks like he has a very small wound that can kind of lull you into complacency. There are so many blood vessels and so many structures in the neck, and you need to be very aggressive and very cautious with these type of injuries.
He needs a chest tube. Go ahead and start blood.
We had to put a chest tube in his chest to drain the blood. All the blood was going into his chest. It was causing his lung to move over to the other side.
I need this hooked up. Could we get 0.8 milligrams of Narcan here, please?
Also around 9:30, another call comes in.
Yes, I'd like to report an accident.
Okay, where at?
On County 18 and Old Shakopee Road.
Is it by Dead Man's Curve or?
Yes.
Korea's 4453. 453 on a possible PI, Dead Man's Curve.
Police Sergeant Paul McCullough is the first to respond.
I proceeded to the accident, which was on County Road 18 at the curve, Dead Man's Curve, we call it. And if drivers aren't paying attention, if they're unfamiliar, if they've been consuming alcohol, they're not ready for it. It was a bad accident. Heavy damage, totaled vehicles, and a woman who was seriously injured. The car was caved in probably 3 or 4 feet. The windshield was all cracked. The driver of the other vehicle had some signs of consuming alcohol. And during the conversation with him, smelling the odor of alcohol just kind of confirmed that that was a problem.
She had hit the windshield. It's a little more difficult for us as paramedics to treat that kind of an injury because we really can't do much for it in the field. That's one of those things where you got to get them to the hospital and let the doctors handle it.
27-year-old Karen Bakke is semi-conscious when she arrives at the trauma center. Dr. Michelle Byros examines her.
Since she had head trauma, we had to also worry about an expanding lesion in her head that could be progressively worsening.
Yeah, but she's real off and on, real somnolent. She'll fade in and out. What does the car look like? Pretty messed up.
When there are 2 cases going on at the same time, there is a little degree of nervousness that is generated. You start to worry a little bit that you might overlook one thing or another in the frenzy of activity that occurs. What's your name?
Pressure bags. We need more line.
You don't remember at all what happened? The most useful thing we heard from the paramedics was the fact that she had several episodes of vomiting. That suggested to us that her airway may need protection. We'll take it out as soon as it's safe to do that.
You ready?
Why am I alive? They're getting out of me now! Don't have anything in this! I want to do what's safe. I can't breathe!
It's a very emotional time. They're generally the sickest when they're in the emergency department, and there's a lot of things going on, and it's a very stressful experience.
We'll take that tube out as soon as we know that it's safe to do that. Okay, we're trying to do everything that's going to be important for your own best interest here, okay? I'm gonna gag!
If they don't understand or are combative, you need to tell them that it has to be done for their own good.
Take some slow, deep breaths. Slow, deep breaths. We'll take that out just as soon as we can.
I can't breathe!
Did you get the LFTs added on?
Across the room, the stabbing victim is being taken to get an angiogram.
We needed to get a study looking at the blood vessels with dye to see which vessels were involved and where the bleeding was coming from.
Karen is put under the care of neurosurgeon Doug Berglund.
Do you understand where we're taking it? No. We're going up to a special x-ray.
A patient who is hit on the head can initially be awake and then all of a sudden deteriorate and be unconscious, and they can die within a very short period of time. The person who was originally up and walking at the scene of an accident can be dead a few hours later. We got the CAT scan because we were worried about her having bleeding within her brain, something that she would urgently need to go to the operating room for to evacuate that blood clot.
Dr. Berglund talks to Karen's parents about her condition.
I just want to kind of explain to you, go ahead and have a chair. She was in a car accident tonight, and they may have told you before, and she was actually unconscious at the scene, so we were quite worried about her.
We hardly spoke, just trying to imagine what really happened. It's a scary thing.
We'll keep her in the intensive care unit, though, so we can watch her real closely. The brain is described as like a bowl of jello, okay? And the brain is the jello inside the bowl. And when you shake the bowl, the brain snaps back and forth. Now, when the brain sloshes back and forth within the skull like that, there can be some tearing of the nerve cells. Those will not show up if they're very small in a CAT scan like this.
That's concerning. Think about head injuries. My first thought was, oh no, some kind of brain damage. It's a terrible feeling to think possibly you may have lost one of your kids.
Is that my dad?
Yeah.
Dad.
How you doing, kid?
Do you believe this? I was going around this curve, and this car comes smashing into me. In a way, I thought it was a dream.
When we did get in there to see her, and she opened up her eyes and she talked to us, that lifted a big weight right there.
What does my car look like?
I don't know.
Ask him.
Don't worry about the car. Don't worry about the car. Just worry about Carol.
I can't believe this work. They do
We called her. They know you're not coming.
All you have to do is worry about Karen getting
Just lay here and rest.
They get the guy.
I don't know.
That's what I want to find out.
We'll get all the particulars.
Find out. I'll call the Bloomington police.
5 hours later, stabbing victim Euless Collins is rushed back into surgery.
He had a sudden increase in his bleeding. A lot of blood was coming out of his chest tubes, and again, he dropped his blood pressure. He had to go back to the operating room for emergent surgery. He had a laceration to a major vessel in his neck that it was a through-and-through laceration, meaning that it went all the way through the artery. This did not show up on the angiogram, which we would hope that it would have. The laceration was repaired, the bleeding was controlled, and he is now doing quite well and is stable.
The next morning, Dr. Berglund checks in on Karen.
You look at her car, and it was demolished, and that she can come out of that and be walking today, I think is really a miracle. And maybe that's even part of what you're feeling right now, a little frustration, you know, with crutch walking and things like that.
The last thing I remember was headlights coming toward me. It was all so fast. It was just so fast. I tried to avoid them, I guess not. It hurts to move, it hurts to breathe. I hope I never run into them. I might not be nice. I won't be nice. There's just no way Mom and Dad can take care of me if I can't.
Wear seatbelts at all times, no matter if you run to the store. That's where I made my mistake.
37-year-old Euless Collins had received a stab wound during a domestic dispute, but no charges were filed. He is expected to completely recover from the near-fatal wound.
Something hit me twice. I knew I couldn't make it back up my steps because it was too many steps. So I went across the street. 5 more minutes, I feel like I would die. I can't take life for granted no more. The whole thing was like stupid. For nothing, you know. For maybe saying a few words. You know, I've been using cocaine and stuff, you know, and drinking alcohol and all that stuff. It just ain't going nowhere. Ain't no future in it. Get together now where you got a chance. Because you're not promised tomorrow. Tomorrow not promised no one.
3 days after Karen Baki's accident, she went home.
It's such a blur to me. I forget everything now. People tell me things that I've said and I don't remember. I'll plop down on that couch. No stitches, no broken bones. I'm lucky, you know. I don't know what gave me such luck, but I'm lucky. I thought about it, thought about my car, thinking what an idiot that guy was for disrupting my life. Just one person out on the road that shouldn't have been.
The driver of the other car's blood alcohol level had been above the legal limit when his car crossed the center of the road and hit Karen's. He was fined $700.
I hope he doesn't do it again. I hope someone talks to him. At least that'll be one more person that has gotten the message.
If I could talk to him face to face, as a father, and maybe he's a father too, I don't know, and tell him, you know, what he put us through. Maybe if we could help one person that would never do it again, so they wouldn't have to put another family through it.
It's amazing she's alive. Absolutely amazing.
Next.
Rescue?
Oh, yeah. He fell off a cliff.
Fell off a what?
He's injured.
Where did he fall at?
He fell off a cliff.
In the spring of 1990, 14-year-old Jeremy McLaren of Charlottesville, Virginia, had learned basic life-saving in one of his high school classes. He never imagined that within a few weeks he'd be using those skills to try and save the life of someone he loved.
We had decided that we'd like to go and climb the cliff over where my dad and I and the rest of the family had once lived. When we got to there, we didn't really recognize it and stuff, but it was really awesome looking.
You ever know?
Just barely.
Wait till you get over there. Look, really.
There's a little creek, and we crossed the creek, and we were running around in it. There's this huge 80-foot cliff and everything, and so then we went over to the cliff, and we started to climb and everything. My dad was looking around for a good place and found a good place and started to climb.
All right.
I didn't want to climb it because it looked too scary and steep and everything. But there was a ledge about 15 feet up, and I thought, well, I can make it up to that, and it'd be neat just to sit on that ledge and everything.
It looks slippery. It is.
I got up to about 12 feet, and I decided, no, I don't want to do this. It looks too dangerous. But my dad kept on climbing.
It had been 10 years since 35-year-old Barry McLaren had been climbing.
We found a trail that just went up like a hill or something, went and just led you right up to the top. We looked down, we saw my dad climbing. He says, I don't know if I want to go on or not, but going up sure does look a whole lot easier than going down.
Barry had been climbing the sheer rock face for nearly 20 minutes when his muscles began to cramp.
Before he's been able to climb it successfully and climb all the way up it, but this time for some reason he said his hands were hurting and that his hands were really tired. I was watching him. He was climbing right about 5 feet diagonally from me. And I was just sitting there. I could have, like, reached down my hand and touched him or grabbed onto a tree and helped him up or something. And I freaked out at first. And I said, Dad just fell off. So we're running down the hill. I got control of myself. And so Josh was closest, so he got down there first. And he started going into shock.
14-year-old Jeremy had learned basic first aid in school and the Boy Scouts. 12-year-old Josh and his friend ran to get help.
They went over to call 911. I saw my dad, he's got this huge gash under his chin. And so I put my shirt on that and held it on there for direct pressure and everything. And checked all over to see if there are any more blood spots.
Don't get up, Dad. Don't get up. Just lay down. Just lay down. Stay still.
I was feeling a mixture of sadness and scared because I didn't know if he was gonna die or not.
Rescue.
Yeah.
Rescue.
Oh, yeah. He fell off a cliff. He's real...
Fell off a what?
He's injured.
Where did he fall at?
He fell off a cliff.
Where at?
Like over, where is it? Okay, here.
Is there anybody else there?
Yeah, talk to her.
Okay.
Yeah, the man fell off a cliff down here at the Old Quarry Road.
Old Quarry?
Uh-huh.
What's the address there?
If you come to the ballpark, somebody can lead you down there.
At the ballpark?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and, what is your name?
Gloria Harlow.
Okay, how old does this man look, you know?
I couldn't tell you. I just got the kid's message. How old is he? He's 35. In his middle 30s.
Is there anyone there with him at this time?
Is anybody down there with him now? There's one of his sons with him right now.
He was pretty much cut up and twisted and bent out of shape and everything. And that's what kind of shocked me because, I mean, he just seemed so alive and everything. And then to see him so helpless, it was just sort of a shock to me.
On Quarry Road, near the ballpark, reported a subject falling over a cliff. Charlottesville Rescue trauma level, squad level. See the medic 132, squad 133. At this time, we have no further information.
Units from both the Charlottesville Fire Department and the Charlottesville Albemarle Volunteer Rescue Squad responded. Lieutenant Charles Werner was one of the EMTs on duty that day.
We were dispatched to the cliff rescue. At that point, we didn't know, the information was vague, so we weren't aware of the actual situation of the person who had apparently fallen.
I was telling him, please don't die. Everything's gonna be okay. You're gonna be home, Mom's gonna see you and everything. She'll be happy to see you.
– 14-year-old Corbin Snow met Fire Captain Bill Lewis at the nearest road and told him what had happened.
Lieutenant Werner and I talked it over, decided that I was going to go ahead with the kid immediately so someone could get there as soon as we could.
Corbin and Captain Lewis hiked the half-mile to where Barry had fallen.
It's right here.
What happened?
He fell off the cliff right up there.
After talking to his son, and his son explained to me that he almost was at the top of the cliff before he fell, and in my mind then, you know, the man was in it was a miracle that he was even in the shape that he was in then.
We did start basic life support measures of controlling the bleeding and to maintain an airway.
Okay, you got his head, right?
Yeah,
I got his head.
His son Jeremy was there,
Okay, Dad.
and he was able to give us information specifically as to how his father fell, which helped us in providing the best treatment that we could. We were able to determine by the mechanism of injury that he probably had a great deal of internal injury, and we realized that he may have some spinal injuries.
Hey, Barry, you doing all right? He won't tolerate an OP airway. He doesn't have enough room.
Okay, straighten his arm out.
Okay, Captain, you still got the head, right? Still got the head.
That's good.
Okay,
Like
bud.
that.
I was calm because I knew I had to be. If I went berserk, then it wouldn't benefit him any. And I had always learned that you need to keep calm so you don't end up maybe even hurting the victim even more.
Barry McLaren was rushed to the University of Virginia Medical Center in critical condition. Dr. Adam Abram was the general surgery resident on call that day.
Are you getting air into your lungs? Okay, 1, 2, 3.
He came into the emergency room and he had obvious facial trauma, a lot of hemorrhaging from his mouth, open gaping wounds on his lower chin and on his cheeks.
Barry, take a deep breath.
Anytime you have a facial fracture, it's the possibility of a cervical spine injury, and paralysis is always there.
Barry, do you know where you are right now?
Right arm down for me.
You know where you are?
His mental status was slowly deteriorating. He wasn't able to communicate as well. He seemed to be losing his orientation.
Pelvis is stable, belly's soft. Okay, this leg here is obviously broken. There's a bone deformity right here. Okay. Are they ready and CAT scan yet?
Okay.
As soon as she was notified of the accident, Barry's wife, Mary, came to be with her husband.
He had fallen evidently on his jaw. His mandible was broken in 25 or more places, and it evidently shattered up into his face and into his forehead. The doctors came out and talked with me and got me to sign permission forms for the surgery that he was going to face that day for the bleeding in the brain.
He's doing fairly well. I mean, he is still kind of groggy from the anesthesia, of course, but he is responding well.
The operation to relieve the buildup of blood on the brain was successful. But with numerous broken bones throughout his face and body and a punctured lung that led to pneumonia, Barry's life was not out of danger.
When his eyes opened, they were so filled with pain. I had never seen anything like that before. But his eyes, you could see that there was a great deal of pain in his eyes. I never really was able to talk to him because his jaw was wired shut and they had his face all bandaged up. His jaw was still in pieces, basically. My mom and he knew sign language and they could communicate that way.
Jeremy and Joshua,
I went over to the bed and the boys were getting a little bit worried about him too because he was signing in sign language, no more pain, want death, want home. And I knew he didn't mean this home. He wanted to go to his heavenly home.
the pain that he was going through was so excruciating that he had just given up his will to live.
I wondered if it was right for us to ask him to stay here and suffer so much. But I knew that he needed to be here for our children, that they needed a father.
After 3 weeks in the hospital, Barry McLaren had managed to recover enough to go home. But he still was facing 5 months of painful physical therapy before he would be able to walk without crutches.
By Saturday evening, the pain was so severe that I really preferred the thought of not continuing, of going ahead and giving up my life. But the thing that, of course, kept occurring to me was that I didn't want to leave my wife. I didn't want to leave my children.
I think probably because my father was so strong and healthy, that's probably what helped him to get through the accident. Also, probably what helped it on was my mother's and father's love for each other. They love each other very much. I couldn't even begin to explain how much they do.
It's been a hard-fought battle to have come from near death and fought my way back. It feels to me like it was my family and I that fought our way back. And so while at the same time there's the loss of the sense of invulnerability, there's also a sense that, hey, we can do anything together.
Knowing who to call can help save lives. If your community does not have 911, post the emergency numbers in your area by each phone. This series is dedicated to all the heroes who choose to get involved when a life is at stake. I'm William Shatner. Join us again next week for more true stories on Rescue 911.